Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another Grounded TV live stream. This is Conservative Corner with your host, Justice. Welcome and good morning, Rhonda, 2 Cents Hurricane. Welcome back, everybody. And what we got today is Pierre Poilievre making a policy announcement in St. John's, New Brunswick. And normally I will skip to the point where his speech starts, but I was getting the video ready before things started today. And I just started laughing my ass off at something that happens between these two on the screen here. So we're just going to watch this for like 30 seconds and then we'll skip past all the French.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Williamson. I'm the Conservative candidate in St. John, St. Croix, which you'll see right behind me here, the port of St. John in the backdrop here. Thanks for coming today. I also just want to take a second to recognize Melissa Young, our candidate in St. John, Kennebecasis. For those of you who are from away, that might seem an odd pronunciation, but that is how we pronounce it, Kennebecasis. It's a great riding, and I know Melissa is going to do great for us as our Conservative candidate. Today, we have the honor of hosting Pierre Poilievre right here in the port city.
So he said Poilievre's name wrong, and you can see Poilievre's face as he does it.
Today, we have the honor of hosting Pierre Poilievre right here in the port city.
I was just laughing so hard when I saw Poilievre's face after his own MP mispronounced his name. I just thought it was so funny. But anyways, yeah, we'll skip past now to pass all the French here. So.
On va mettre fin au Canada to go through independence. But I have a great thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, John, for your introduction. Thank you also to the great Melissa Young, who has worked in carpentry and has been promoting the trades. She's obviously from New Brunswick, but she has been working across Canada to recruit our youth into boots, not suits, so that we can build the economy of the future, make our country strong again to stand up against American economic aggression. And here we are in St. John, not by any coincidence. We're in this place because it symbolizes both our long history and our optimistic future. This is the place where we come to move our products over the Atlantic to the world. It is one of the great cities of the Atlantic that will be greater still and bigger and bolder into the future. Well, it's here today that we reflect upon the great East-West nation that John A. Macdonald dreamt of and began building. That's why Louis Saint Laurent built the St. Lawrence Seaway to open up the Canadian heartland to the world. These projects boosted our economy and guaranteed our economic independence. But I have a question. Do you think we could get the St. Lawrence Seaway open today? Do you think we could build the Canadian Pacific Railway today?
I
Really?
don't think so.
Think about it.
I don't think so.
There'd be some environmental extremist like Stephen Guilbeault or maybe Gregor Robertson, the new Liberal candidate, former Vancouver mayor, who'd be chaining themselves to a tree to prevent it from happening. And it would take a decade to go through a bureaucratic process that would never lead anywhere. How many projects have the Liberals killed already? 16 major energy projects, $176 billion that we know of. There were 18 LNG liquefaction plants proposed 10 years ago when the Liberals took office. Not one has been completed. The only one that's close was approved by the previous Harper government. They blocked 2 major pipelines, both the Energy East and the Northern Gateway pipeline. Mr. Carney testified in committee against the Northern Gateway pipeline, which would have allowed us to move 500,000 barrels of oil to Asia every single day. Now that oil goes to the Americans at a discount, making us even more dependent on what is now a very aggressive southern neighbor. It is time to reverse the lost Liberal decade of blocking projects and moving money out of the country. It is time to take back control and relaunch our economy, to unleash our energy sector and bring home our jobs and powerful paychecks. It is time to turn Canada into an economic fortress.
Yeah, he's got a rally tonight. I'll be covering. I think it's about 4 o'clock PST. It'll be starting. I think the doors open at like 6 EST. So yeah, like for PSC, I'll be streaming his rally later today. Yeah, we're gonna start with this, guys, and I want to watch Mark Carney's announcement today after this as well, because I think he was grilled on a few specific issues that I think are pretty important right now, especially with ongoing Canada-China relations, things like that, of those nature. I want to hear more about, and I heard he was asked some questions by reporters today about that. So I'd like to see his response. But yeah, we're gonna start with this. It is just Conservative Corner today because Saul's not going to be attending. But yeah, we will be doing the rally later as well.
That puts our country first for a change. With Donald Trump threatening our country with tariffs, we need big projects that link our regions east to west. We need to be able to get our resources across Canada, bypassing America, so we can trade more with each other and sell our resources to the world. Under the Liberals, this kind of big thinking has become impossible.
Hey, welcome back, Autumn, Melissa, and Devil is Due. Forgot to say that.
The average time it takes to get a mine approved is 17 years, 23% longer than Australia, 38% longer than in the U.S. Canada now ranks 23rd in the World Bank's ease of doing business. We fall in 7 places. We're the second slowest country in all of the 36-nation OECD to get a building permit, the second slowest. The Liberals' radical keep-it-in-the-ground agenda killed 16 major energy projects and billions of dollars. And then think of the number of businesses from around the world who don't even bother proposing a project in Canada because it is a waste of time and money under the Liberals' keep-it-in-the-ground economic policy. Since the Liberals killed the Energy East pipeline, and let's make no mistake, they did kill the Energy East pipeline. You know, they'll claim that TransCanada just changed its mind. Really? So the company spent $1 billion on getting the project approved, only to sort of one day say, oh boy, the price of oil has gone down this week, we're going to cancel the whole thing. Give me a break. This is a 100-year investment. It doesn't get canceled because the weekly price of oil went down. It got canceled because the Liberals changed the rules in the middle of the game. And let's be clear, Liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69 will make it impossible for any other project to ever get approved in this country. And Mark Carney could have repealed that law. I encouraged him to reconvene Parliament after he won the Liberal leadership race and quickly, under emergency conditions, repeal C-69. He didn't do it. So it doesn't matter what he says about the law now. We know he doesn't mean it because he could have done it. It is a Liberal law that they passed, that they brought in, and that they have defended. And it is the same Liberal ministers, same Liberal MPs, same Liberal strategists, same Liberal promises that they made 10 years ago. If you vote the same, you will get the same by re-electing the same Liberal gang. The only difference now is they have a weaker and more compromised Liberal leader. While Mr. Carney was advisor to Justin Trudeau, he supported all of the same radical keep-it-in-the-ground policies, but not only because he believes in it, because he profited from it. By pushing resource projects out of Canada, his investments overseas and in the States become more profitable. Less competition from Canada means globalist elites like him get richer and fatter. He supported his entire business career, so-called business career, was about defunding Canadian energy, convincing banks to stop lending to Canadian energy companies. He supported C-69. He still supports the energy cap. Just last week, one of his ministers said that they're going to keep in place a cap on Canadian energy production that doesn't apply in the United States. Even more billions will leave the country under that policy. Mr. Carney says he supports an industrial carbon tax. Again, a tax that applies on Canadian businesses but not on American ones, which will, this is another area where Mr. Carney and Mr. Trump agree. Both want to tax Canadian industry. With Carney, it's a carbon tax. With Trump, it's a tariff. But the effect is the same. It will drive tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars south of the border because there is no such tax.
Yeah, I wouldn't let the polls get carried away. I think I said this on the live stream a few nights ago that the polls are very volatile right now. Like they can go up as quick as they can go down as quick as they went up. They're going to probably be all over the place. We might see the Liberals take the lead and lose it multiple times throughout this race. But like I said, I believe as people get to know Mark Carney more and his inexperience as a politician starts to kind of show, I think he's going to start to tank, and I think it's going to work out just in time for the Conservatives. The Liberals know this. Carney is in a race right now, and I mean a real race. He wanted this election as soon as possible and for it to conclude as quickly as possible so that he could give the Canadian people as little of a chance to get to know him and his policies and where he's at. One thing I thought was weird is, you know, he hasn't done like, you know, and people might think this is silly when it comes to like the Christian community, the Jewish community, and the Islamic communities. You know, if you're going to dance with one, you should dance with all three, so to speak, in my opinion, as a politician, if you're not a religious person yourself. But he's going and he was participating in an Islamic holiday tradition. And like, I don't think there's a huge problem with that, but I just thought it was funny because I'm like, you know, this isn't going to go well with a large portion of voters. Like, I know a lot of older people who would be very like, oh, what the hell is he doing with that? Like, you know, it's like, it's not about the people itself. It's about the religion, right? They just have a problem with it, I guess, because, you know, there's a large, older Christian population in this country. And I don't think they're going to like that very much, especially when people start to see that.
On the U.S. side, Mr. Carney supports the same policies that have driven $500 billion out of our country over the last decade of the lost Liberal period. And he will say anything he has to. You know, he lied about the fact that he plagiarized 10 times in his thesis in order to get his degree. He lied about having moved his headquarters from Canada to the U.S. just 6 days after Trump threatened tariffs on our country. So you can count on him to say whatever he has to say in order to hold on and get the Liberals that fourth term in power. But under the Liberals, applications are lengthy and the economy is crashing. Why would any other company invest in this country with a long Liberal record of high taxes and blocking projects? But the good news is we don't have to, after this lost Liberal decade, we don't have to elect them to a fourth term. We can choose change by putting Canada first with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources, and bring home paychecks and production so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. Today, I'm unveiling yet another concrete proposal to bring about that vision. Today, I'm announcing the Canada First National Energy Corridor, a pre-approved corridor that will allow our incredible businesses to build pipelines, transmission lines, rail lines, and countless other kinds of infrastructure that we need to break our dependence on the Americans, ship our resources to ourselves and overseas markets, bring home powerful paychecks for our country, and stand up for ourselves in a position of strength. Here's how it would work. First, we would use the model of the shovel.
Yeah, Hurricane, I kind of took it as he was almost trying to win over the NDP voters. I was like, what, is this really going to work? Like, it was so cringy at the same time. I'll play it after this is over because I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. I just, like, I don't have a problem with it personally. I'm like, whatever, dude. I just think it's funny because it's kind of like the dude Saul always brings up, you know, the white guy at the barbecue says he likes to, you know, who likes to say he voted for Obama. That's how it comes off to me. So it's just like, you know, he's like, I voted for Obama is basically what he's saying to the Islamic community. And it's just like, I don't know, like I'll play it after though. I just don't think it's going to go very well with like your 55 plus Christian voters. I don't think it's going to go very well.
Ready zone. That is to say, the permits would be pre-authorized. After consultations and environmental research, we would find the path that is safe for our citizens and for nature. Second, we would consult with First Nations, as is our duty under the Constitution of Canada. Third, we would lock down the permits and we would publish specifications and standards that companies have to meet so that they would do the projects in a responsible way that keeps everyone safe. Then, the permits would be pre-published online and legally binding. In other words, the government would not have the legal right to reverse course and change its mind. This would remove the uncertainty. I understand why businesses after the lost Liberal decade would not want to take the risk of starting an application process that could cost them billions of dollars if they thought that maybe a future government would reverse course. That's why pre-approval is so important. Pre-approving the project would mean...
Yeah, if he could get those fishermen that were, losing on the Liberals and demanding to talk to Mark Carney, if he can get their endorsement and bring them up on stage and show he's willing to talk to them, I think that would be a huge political win for him, especially on the East Coast there.
That the companies could invest with certainty, knowing what they have to do.
Like, there's not a lot of people there, but there's traditionally a pretty liberal stronghold, most of Newfoundland and New Brunswick, from what I understand.
And what they can build. This certainty will allow the private sector to do the building. It will allow our businesses to invest, hire, and grow. It would also allow us to become independent from the Americans, going around them directly to ourselves and to others. We can build Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel to deliver Canadian energy to a Canadian refinery, perhaps right here in St. John. And that will cause a massive economic boom. Billions of dollars will flood into our government coffers from the resulting economic growth, money that can be used to improve our failing hospitals and our schools, building roads and other infrastructure we need, defeating poverty and lifting up our people, giving new jobs to our young tradespeople, 350,000 of whom we are going to train up through our Boots Not Suits plan. It will mean a new era of prosperity, and it adds to a broader plan that we've been systematically unveiling. For example, just yesterday, I announced the Canada First reinvestment tax cut. Zero capital gains tax if you reinvest in Canada. You sell your business and you reinvest in a Canadian stock that funds Canadian economic growth, zero capital gains tax. You sell a rental property and reinvest it in building a new home in Canada, zero capital gains tax. You're a company that wants to sell a vacant piece of land to reinvest in building a new factory in Canada, zero capital gains tax. You want to take your money out of Canada to a foreign jurisdiction, you will pay capital gains tax. That's why it's called Canada First. We're going to be bringing home hundreds of billions of dollars and unleashing a boom. This will be economic rocket fuel for our Canadians to launch above and beyond the American.
Welcome back, Sarah. Yeah, we're going to be watching that after. At first, I wasn't sure what we were going to be doing for sure. And then I was kind of like, just when I was setting up, I realized like, oh, this is actually a pretty big announcement from Mark Carney, just because a lot of the questions that were asked and we will be getting into. And if he references that press conference at any point, we'll go over to Mark Carney's press conference, watch that first, and then come back to this.
Americans. We will cut income tax by 15% for the average worker and senior. So that means that more of your pension and your paycheck will go home to your family rather than into government coffers. And speaking of home, we'll get rid of the GST. We will axe the federal sales tax on new homes, saving you up to $65,000 on a purchase or $3,000 a year in lower mortgage payments. And we will axe the carbon tax. But unlike the Liberals who brought in the tax and who are just going to hide it for the next month leading up to the election, we will axe the tax for everyone, for everywhere, for good, for real, for a change. We will unleash an incredible economic boom that will turn Canada into a fortress. We'll honor the legacy of John A. Macdonald and Louis Saint-Rand by adding pipelines, power lines, roads, rail that bind the nation together. One nation, bound together into a united country, self-reliant, sovereign, standing on its own 2 feet and standing up to the Americans from a position of strength. The choice is clear. After the lost Liberal decade of costs and crime up and the economy down under the American thumb, can we afford to give Liberals a 4th term? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources to bring home our jobs so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength? Canada first for a change. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We will now take questions from the floor. With St. John being the most trade-prone city in Canada and New Brunswick sending 92% of its exports to the United States, what would Conservative government do to help through this trade war and beyond?
Thank you. That's a very good question. This is one of the most trade-intensive economies in the world, St. John in particular, New Brunswick in general. We'll make sure that businesses have the cash they need, the liquidity required to pay their bills and keep people working. Our goal is to keep people working through this trade dispute. And furthermore, we need to retaliate against the Americans targeting goods we don't need, can make ourselves, or get elsewhere, so we maximize the impact on them while minimizing the impact on ourselves. Then I will present President Trump with a choice.
President choice.
Either you start a trade war with America's closest friend and neighbor, which will weaken both our economies, rendering our continent more vulnerable to risks from abroad, or you knock down the trade barriers, we trade more as two separate sovereign nations, we enrich both sides of the border, allowing us to spend massively on our military, so that both Canada and the U.S. separately, but cooperating together, are stronger, safer, and richer. I believe, presented with that choice, particularly as they get closer to midterm elections, I think that the Americans will, in the end, be forced to reverse these disastrous tariff policies. But we can't rely on the Americans to determine our economic destiny. Your question, it contains in it the problem. Why is it that after the lost Liberal decade, we are so dependent on the Americans for everything? For example, if the Energy East pipeline were approved today, there would be 1 million barrels of oil going from St. John to Europe. It's almost $100 million, depending on the price of oil. It's almost $100 million a day that would be transiting through here, paying refinery workers and all the businesses that they shop at around here to sell to Europe, and the Americans wouldn't be able to do a damn thing about it because it would have been a direct transit out of North America to an overseas economy. We need to bring that home. If we had a national energy corridor today, St. John would not be so reliant on the Americans. We'd be able to transit billions and billions of dollars through this incredible city without worrying about what the Americans think. That is what we're trying to do with this Canada First policy. And the choice in the election is, after a lost Liberal decade, with costs and crime up and the economy down under the American thumb, do they deserve a fourth term in power, or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build a national corridor, ship our resources around the world while bringing powerful paychecks home, making us strong enough to stand up to the Americans? Thank you.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Une très bonne question. On va devoir riposter. Quoi est-ce que Saint-Barry qui aurait Saint-Jean et ailleurs?
On mounting frustrations about how the
You guys some move up. Intérêt des Canadiens pour faire changement. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Nick Murray with the Canadian Press.
Hi there.
I
Good
can let
morning.
you take a drink of water if you'd like.
Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you. I wish it was something stronger, but I'll take it.
What?
We've got a lot of breweries around here, right? Moosehead's right over there. So that's our next stop? Oh, well, that will be fun too, but I think we should have worked that in. And we should have offered you guys some Moosehead before the press conference. I think you would have asked more sympathetic questions.
Moosehead.
I've been to the small batch.
It's actually good beer, not gonna lie. Moosehead's pretty good, but it's just funny. I'm wondering, like, I've never looked at where Moosehead's from, so I'm wondering if that was strategically picked or not.
Here, it's quite good.
Okay.
Sir, there are reports on mounting frustrations about how the campaign is going and the trailing polling numbers. What's your plan to turn things around, and will you make changes to the campaign leadership?
Some people have said that I should stop talking about the doubling housing costs that have denied an entire generation the chance to own a home after the lost Liberal decade. They say that we shouldn't be debating why single moms are lined up at food banks in record numbers after the lost Liberal decade. They suggest that we shouldn't debate why 50,000 of our citizens have lost their lives to drug overdoses under the radical Liberal drug policies, that we should just forget that after the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, that we should just ignore all of those things. I disagree. My purpose in politics is to restore Canada's promise so that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. It's hard work. It gets you a great life and a beautiful, affordable home on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. All the things that we need to do to respond to the economic aggression of the Americans are things I've been talking about for 10 years. I was standing up for pipelines 10 years ago when Mark Carney was opposing them. I've been saying that we need to approve resource projects quickly for the last 10 years while Mark Carney was supporting C-69 and the energy cap and other Liberal policies. I've stood up for tax cuts that will unleash growth in our economy over the last 10 years, in fact, over my entire career. The threats, the unjustified threats by President Trump further strengthened the argument in favor of the Canada First agenda that I've been fighting for my whole life. And while we propose those solutions, we will not forget the single mom who can't afford food. We will not forget the seniors who are choosing between eating and heating. We will not forget that young 36-year-old couple whose biological clock is running out faster than they can afford to buy a home and have kids. We will not forget the families terrorized by crime and drugs, and so we will continue, despite calls to the contrary, to talk about those things, even if I am the only leader in the country that offers any change. And the choice, again, is whether, after this lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, with our economy falling under the American thumb, do we give them, can we afford to give them a fourth term? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will restore Canada's promise?
En français.
Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, and I was saying this on the podcast episode we dropped today. We dropped episode 2 of the Grounded TV podcast, by the way, the reboot that dropped today. I was saying this as well. It's just like, you know,
Il y en a qui disent que for a change with a new Conservative government.
like we've been at this like Liberal decade and we just need some change. I just don't think we're going to get it with the Liberals again. Like traditionally speaking, Canada's motive has been to flip and flop every decade or so. And I think we're kind of on the flop right now. If we install another Liberal leader, like that's, I don't know if that's a record, but I don't think that's happened very many times where the Liberals have gotten 4 terms in a row. Like regardless, I know maybe not the same leader has ever gotten that. I think even back to like Laurier, I know there was a lot of like the Liberals had office for quite a while, but they kind of were out for a term, then back in, out for a term, back in. But you know, this is like consecutive 4 terms of Liberals. Like how many times has that happened?
That will restore Canada's promise.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Il y en a qui disent que je devrais arrêter de parler du doublement du coût de logement après la décennie perdue des libéraux, que je devrais simplement ignorer qu'ils font maintenant on va défendre l'économique face à Donald Trump avec un nouveau.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning. Just going back to the energy corridor, what would that mean for Energy East? And has a private investor come forward to reignite that plan that's been dead long ago?
So you're right to point out that the Energy East project was killed by the previous Liberal government, and right now, today, it would be impossible for any pipeline to be built because there's a no new pipelines law, C-69, that the Liberals have passed into law and kept in place with Mark Carney's support. People say, well, there's no company to build it. Well, of course, when pipelines are banned, you're not going to get a company to step up and announce they're building a pipeline.
So apparently the Liberals have held 4 consecutive terms under Laurier, where it was actually Laurier who held all 4 terms, and then King St. Laurent era. So that would have been from 1935 to 57. That was all Liberals. And then the Trudeau-Chrétien era as well, 93 to 06. So like the Liberals have been the only ones to pull this off, but traditionally speaking, this would be their last term unless they're going to, change up history a little bit here.
When you have a new government that repeals the anti-pipeline Liberal law, and then you put in place a pre-approved corridor.
Hey, welcome back, Railroaded and James. Oh, wow. Congratulations. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah, that is a very tall baby, I got to say.
That removes the uncertainty. All of a sudden, it becomes very attractive. So the chicken and egg problem we have today is that as long as the anti-pipeline law and government are in place, no one is going to put their name forward to build anything in Canada, even as pipeline construction is booming all around the world, because pipelines are, of course, so wildly profitable. The only way that you get the investment is to repeal the anti-pipeline law and bring in a pre-approved corridor, so businesses know they will never again have to spend 7 years and $1 billion to get to a dead end. You, in fact, give them the corridor that gives them the light at the end of the tunnel and a certainty for the future. That's how you put Canada first. And then the choice in this election is the following. After the lost Liberal decade, where they blocked Energy East along with $178 billion of projects, should we elect them to a 4th term? Or is it time for a new Conservative government that will put Canada first by rapidly building a national energy corridor, cutting taxes, and bringing home the billions of dollars Liberals pushed out of Canada so that we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength?
En français.
Merci beaucoup de votre question. La question, c'est est-ce pour une pipeline en 24 heures que c'est le temps de
du Madawaska resté gauche. Vous avez mentionné de faire une de vos actions.
De garder les 80. C'est pour ça que j'ai. Thank you. The question was about d'abord sur la puissance américaine. Est-ce qu'on peut leur donner un 4e mandat ou est-ce qu'il nous faut mettre le Canada d'abord avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va bâtir, bâtir et bâtir? Merci.
In English.
Thank you. The question was about rural and remote communities in New Brunswick and other smaller towns that have already been hit by this terrible trade dispute. The question was whether what actions we should take to protect those jobs. We will make sure that businesses have the support they need to keep their workers in their jobs through the dispute. We would hate for the disruption of what might be a temporary dispute to cause long-term unemployment. So let's try to keep our workers working. They want jobs. They don't want unemployment. But we also have to ask ourselves, why are we in such a helpless position after the lost Liberal decade, where the Americans get 75% of our exports, 100% of our oil, 100% of our gas, 90% of our oil, almost all of our forestry products. The reason is that Liberal anti-resource laws, they've blocked our projects, they've taxed away $500 billion of investment that has now gone south, they've crippled and weakened our country. And so after the last Liberal decade, can we really afford to elect them a 4th time? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change, with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, greenlight resource projects, and bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars the Liberals have pushed out of Canada, so that we can stand on our own 2 feet, stand up to the Americans from a position of strength? That's what it means to put Canada first for a change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Yeah, I think he's getting stronger and stronger every day. Like, I think he's been able to be more positive, hopeful, while still sticking to his principles. And like he pointed out there, people are saying he shouldn't be bringing these issues up. He has been told by conservatives to focus on other issues, but he's refusing to. And I respect that a lot, because this is somebody who I feel like is going to do, like, actually going to lead, right? They're not just going to, I don't know. Like, I just feel like he will be a much stronger leader than Carney. I feel like Carney's got this way of, like, he does, like, it comes off as sneaky, but I think it's just politically inexperienced. He doesn't understand, I think, what people want these days for level of communication. They want you to basically be, almost an influencer, essentially. They want to follow you around everywhere, see everything you're doing. And I don't think Carney quite gets that. But anyways, we're going to watch the other leaders' announcements from today. So we'll go to Mark Carney's.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer.
Here today.
YouTube shouldn't be deleting your comments. I get a flag if someone's comments have excessive profanity. That's about it. That's the only time your comments are going to get deleted. But yeah, no, congratulations getting railroaded on the first grandbaby. That's got to be very exciting. I will post that video now. CBC agreed with you this morning. Oh, really, Sarah? All right. Yeah, please post that now. I will play that before we get into this if it's short. Just send it in the Discord there. Yeah, and let me know how the connection is, guys. Again, the Starlink internet is not perfect. Only one more week on it, then I'll be on a much better internet plan. So I won't be having any of these hiccups anymore. But it's just the satellite. I don't know what it is with Starlink. They just have these it's very, very good satellite internet, but it has these like hiccups that like it goes from like 0 to 100 so quickly, up and down a few times. So I apologize if there's some buffering or disconnecting. Just let me know in the chat if there's any issues in that department. And yeah, it should resolve itself in a few moments if it's happening right now. But anyways, yeah, if you got that video, Sarah, you want to post it in the Discord? Because I was looking for it on the side and I couldn't find it. So yeah, if you want to share that, please do.
Coordinated
Oh, well, that's loud.
action among federal, provincial, and municipal governments to support affordable housing development is needed, with clear leadership from the federal government. And that's what Canada Strong means to me as an urban planner.
Okay, we're going to skip past this.
Where we can be here today for the unveiling of our party's plan to
Gregor
make
Robinson.
housing the cornerstone of opportunity, not a barrier to it, and to build Canada strong. Thank you, and it's my pleasure now to introduce the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, Mark Carney.
Hello. Thank you very much, Gregor, for kind introduction. Thanks for stepping up and running with us. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here, everything you've done for the City of Toronto, and for helping us to unlock what's necessary to build the homes that Canadians need and deserve. I just had a great, quick but a great tour of the College of Carpenters and Allied Trades. Judging by the students and their leaders that I met, this profession.
Here, we'll go watch that quick clip that Sarah, the Discord, Sarah's talking about here, because I'm curious about that as well. So what timestamp you say it's at? 1:38:13. Okay, yeah, we'll go to that first.
Election campaign. We've already heard from the Liberal leader Mark Carney. We brought you those comments a little bit earlier on. Just now you heard from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. And in less than a couple of hours, we're going to bring you an announcement from the NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. But the question becomes, how well are any of the messages from the leaders resonating with ordinary Canadians? Well, to answer that and more, we have reached Jennifer Stewart. She's a strategic communications expert and CEO of Syntax Strategic. That's a national communications agency. Jennifer, good to have you on the show. Thank you for making time.
Good to be here, Natasha.
So, Jennifer, we just heard from the Conservative leader, so let's begin there. Over the weekend, we were covering the story where a number of Conservative Party members have expressed to CBC News that they're concerned about the direction of the campaign. They're describing it as highly disorganized. They said it's a mess, that the power is far too centralized, the decision-making is centralized, and that the leader isn't focusing enough on Donald Trump and positioning himself as a counter to Donald Trump. We did get a little bit more of that in the messages we just heard from Pierre Poilievre. I wonder how you're feeling about this.
Look, Natasha, those are damning media reports for the Conservative Party. From the Conservative perspective, you can't run a precision race with a paper map. The Conservatives have been calling for an election since 2024, and somehow they're still,
I swear they've been calling it since 2023, honestly. I think the first non-confidence vote did take place February 2024, though.
Seemingly caught flat-footed. So, per the reports, the campaign workers are just figuring out their job hours before the starting gun. If that's the case, you're not campaigning, you're scrambling. But just listening in now, we're seeing a very clear pivot to a ballot box issue, which is the US, which is managing President Trump. And even when we're talking about a pipeline going across Canada, at every instance from a communications perspective, Mr. Poilievre brought that back to how much energy we export to the US. So clearly there's a lot of course correcting that needs to happen, but campaigns are stressful, campaigns are long, and you can win or lose based on the organization of your campaign and how laser focused you are in the ballot box. But look, it might be a one-horse race right now, Natasha, but 28 days is a lifetime in an election.
Absolutely. Well, it brings me back to the point which I just mentioned with you, which is in today's comments from Pierre Poilievre, it felt to me that he was sort of trying to put more of an emphasis. This is the best way to counter Donald Trump. This is the best way to counter the tariffs. He said, some people, when asked a question, some people don't want me to talk so much about single mothers waiting at food banks and people not being able to afford their homes. He went back to the core issues for the Conservatives, which is this cost of living and also making it easier to grow business. And he said he fundamentally disagrees with those who are telling him to talk about this less because he says this is the way to move forward against Trump. So is there enough space there? As you said, 28 days still to go, a lot could change for the Conservatives to bounce back up?
It's a lifetime. There's absolutely enough space, and the Liberals would be remiss to take the...
Yeah, it is a lifetime in an election, right? Like, so much is happening. Like there's pretty much, like, I think Pierre's got 4 rallies or more this week alone. Like, there is so much happening every day. I think it's really hard to just take these polls as like they're going to be carrying us to the end of this election.
Polling for granted. And look, it's not necessarily the issues that the Conservatives are focusing on. It's how they tie the nuance of those issues to the trade war, to the tariffs, and to the cost of living, which continues to escalate as a result of President Trump. And this kind of flip-flop we see on tariffs and what sectors are being targeted almost daily. So I think that there was a moment over the weekend where they reviewed their messaging. I would not be surprised if it was Mr. Poilievre himself, and ensured that every piece of policy that they're going to speak to ties back to this trade war, to the tariffs, and specifically to Mr. Trump itself.
Not to mention, I hear from a lot of people who want to vote for Mark Carney that all Poilievre does is attack and has no policy. And my thing to say to them is you should probably pay more attention to what Poilievre's actually doing and saying, because he's been saying this stuff for a long time. This is just him reiterating it all for everybody because no one was paying attention when he was saying it all. And that's where I get frustrated, because there's a lot of people who I think are very intelligent, smart people, and they just don't seem to be very informed. But worse is they think they are. And so they end up making decisions or just going with the herd, right? And it throws me off because I'm like, you're such a smart person. You can figure out all these other problems, but how are we at 2 wildly different conclusions? And I think that's where I'm starting to see with politics, because it gets so emotional, right? It's tribal. It goes beyond just common sense.
Let's turn our attention now to Liberal leader Mark Carney.
New subscriber, Ruby. Thanks for subscribing.
Not as experienced as the other political leaders, certainly not in campaigning or being a politician. What do you make of the first week of the campaign so far?
It's been pretty steady. Look, it's steady and it's calculated, Natasha. From a campaign perspective.
Okay, so we were just watching that one clip. We just wanted the reaction to Poilievre's speech that Sarah, our viewer, is pointing out.
Hello, everyone. I'm
he's
John
in great
Williamson.
hands.
I'm the Conservative
And
candidate.
I would like to thank the many members of the United Brotherhood and Sisterhood of Carpenters and Joiners who are joining us here today.
Yeah, to me, like, I get called a liberal all the time, and I think it's I've never had my feelings more hurt before. It's honestly just funny because, like, there's a lot of these videos we've been putting out lately too that I feel like are pretty controversial, and a lot of people I find are just reading the title and then leaving comments, and I find it's hilarious because it's like people are saying that I'm a liberal and saying that and like defending Pierre Poilievre to me, and it's funny because it's like, have you met me? Like, have you watched my streams? Like, it's like, it's just funny to me because like I'm definitely not a liberal, and I just think we really need to pay attention to both sides here. We need to try and keep our hats on, be rational, not just assume evil around every corner. And I don't blame everybody. I think the last Liberal administration has beyond damaged and abused the population's trust. And I think that's why they're not going to win this election. Like, people I think were hopeful when they heard about Mark Carney, this new guy who's not Trudeau. He's going to be better than Trudeau. He's got this fancy resume, but they didn't really know a whole lot about him, right? And I think we're starting to see all the dirty laundry come out, and it's forcing people, even if some of the dirty laundry is just rumors, it's forcing people to look into him. And I think that's kind of the goal, and to see who he's involved with, who he's affiliated with. For a long time, the Liberals were saying stuff like, referring to, like, I swear at times, Karina Gould referred to Poilievre being nice to Galen and Weston and these big corporations. And it's like, well, what is Mark Carney? But like, the definition of a suit. Like, this is corporate. This is corporate Canada. That's what he is. Like, he's a global corporate elite. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think someone like that, like, it's not, I don't think he's evil. I just think he has no clue how the average Canadian lives. And I think that's why he's going to have a really hard time winning this election.
As well as the exceptional group of Liberal candidates behind me.
Yeah, I just think the aggressive, for conservatives being aggressive online, you're actually just going to like scare people away that are undecided voters. And like, those people exist. It's funny because I know some people who are undecided voters, and it's like, they exist, and you're just going to scare them away if you're super aggressive. And the left is too at times. It's just, I find I do think conservatives in Canada are a lot more pissed off than your average liberal is, given the polls, and everyone's realizing, oh, this is a possibility. We could end up with liberals again. Like, I didn't think it was a possibility personally. And now that I've realized that too, I'm just like, it is a little bit worrisome. But at the same time, I just don't think this story is not deciding. It's not over yet. We still have 4 weeks. We still have plenty of time for missteps to happen, for things to change. And like I said, people are going to get to know him more, and they're not going to like him as much. And it's funny because there's multiple pollsters, that one they call the polling oracle in Alberta. I played a clip, I believe, on the podcast dropped today, and I think it was actually Sarah Spare Corner again who shared that clip in our Discord, and I played it, and she was even saying, like, pollsters always underestimate the conservative vote, and they always get Quebec wrong. And I think that you got to look at the polls in Quebec. You got to look at the polls region by region. Don't just look at a broad generalization, and then try and, kind of get a feel for where every province is at. And like she was saying, if the regions don't make sense, the poll's probably crap, right? And that's the thing. There is polls that are just crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's a sound science. You can't repeat the same results over and over again. It's just like, hey, this is the result I got this time. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is.
We're here today.
You can't join the Discord. Oh, I might have to update the link, guys. I will take care of that. I might have to do it after the stream though. But I will do that.
Because Vaughn.
Yeah, she called them shy Tories. I thought that was so funny. I was like laughing when I heard that. I was like, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But I was like, it's true. Because like, I think a lot of conservatives tend to be more, like I said, people who aren't like that, typically aren't passionate about politics. But then when life starts to when politics start to really affect them, I think this has been the last couple of decades just for people in Canada in general, just because we've had it pretty good. Not gonna lie. Like, it's been pretty good life. Like, I grew up in the last 30 years, and like I gotta say, looking back to how things were when I was growing up to now, like, we had it pretty good, right? And I think that we're gonna see a new era come. Even if we get the Liberals again this term, historically speaking, they're never going to go over 4 terms, and we will end up with a new leadership the following term. So I wouldn't move out of the country just yet, guys.
As Francesco reminds me, Vaughan is at the epicenter of the building trades in Ontario. And it's home to extraordinarily skilled women and men who are literally building this country. And extraordinary is exactly what we need right now because, as Gregor and Jennifer just alluded to, these are not ordinary times. We are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. And we are going to build our way out of it. President Trump is trying to fundamentally restructure the U.S. economy, and that means our economy will have to change dramatically. As I made clear to the President in our call last week, I will reject all attempts to weaken Canada, to wear us down, to break us so that America can own us. That will never happen, ever.
Yeah, like, I don't think the Libs caused the crisis, but they definitely haven't done enough to fix it or address it properly. And I think a lot of what they've done and what Trudeau was doing was just like, he was kind of like a performer. You know what I mean? Like, he just was like, the people were saying jump, and he was like, is this high enough, or do you need me to go higher? You know, like, he wasn't even really doing it though. It was just this weird dynamic of empty promises. It's kind of like your worst nightmare in a sense, because it's a politician who pretends to understand your issues and then goes and does something else completely different all the time. Like, so he was just kind of like a liar and a performer, right? He was just faking this emotion to try and make people connect with him emotionally. But really, I don't think he cared about anything more than staying in power. And, you know, it wasn't until he was forced out by his own party did he leave. And even then, like, he made sure he did it in a way so the Conservatives could not take power, right? And I think that was just, you know, it bothered me a lot, and I wish there wasn't this like rhetoric of, oh, we cannot let the other side win or it's the end of everything, because that is so dangerous, because it leads to stuff like what Trudeau did. It leads to this idea of like, oh, we're not just going to sit out for a term. It's like, we're going to make sure that we're able to come back and be a contender in this race. You know what I mean? Like, at the point that we're at in the polls, you would have thought, or just in general and in public dissatisfaction, that they probably would have taken a term off, so to speak, and reformed the party or done some restructuring. But they're just putting Mark Carney in, and I'm surprised people are falling for it, because it's like, look at this guy, like, look at who's right behind him. The same damn Liberals that we've seen the last 9.5 years, the same people lying to the Canadian people in these committee meetings, bold face, like no, not even blinking while they're doing it. Like, I utterly despise a lot of, especially this one behind him. I just don't like him personally, the way he handles committee meetings and how he did not seem like he cared about anything but his own party's interests.
Ma réponse, celle de mon équipe libérale, our economy. We need to build a new Canadian economy, a more resilient economy that can succeed in what will be a drastically different world. We need to build that economy so that it works for everyone. Now, as a start, to see how to build, we should draw inspiration from what's worked in the past. Let's go back to a time when we built things in this country.
Didn't Mark Carney say just a few weeks ago that the Conservatives wanted to take us back into the past? Did he not say something like that?
And if you visit almost any community in Ontario, you will see countless streets of houses that are about 80 years old. And that's because during and just after the Second World War, Canada was facing a massive housing crisis, similar to the one we're now in. In response, the government of the day built tens of thousands of affordable starter homes.
Yeah, but I think with after World War II, like, we were taking in a lot of refugees from Europe. Like, I think we took in a lot of people from Poland, Germany, and other war-torn areas at the time. Like, Poland got like leveled out in World War II. Like, they got hit hard. Like, I know we took a lot of refugees from that region of Europe at the time. I'm just wondering though, how, like, you know, to me, we wouldn't be in this situation if Sean Fraser and the Trudeau administration didn't take in so many immigrants. Like, that's a huge part of it. Like we know that's a huge part of it. A huge chunk of them, don't get me wrong, were asylum seekers and refugees, but we didn't just take, we took way more than just that. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that if he's going to say we built 10,000 affordable homes and it fixed the problem, we are nowhere near in the same situation.
Homes for returning veterans and their families. Many of those homes were built by skilled tradeswomen, like our friends from the Sisterhood here today. You see, the Liberal government of William Lyon Mackenzie King had a plan. They created new agencies to oversee the construction of homes. They found ways to cut costs and to cut the time to build. They built...
Yeah, but not to mention, right after World War II was basically the end of that administration. Like, they were only in power till about 1953, so World War II ended what, like 1946?
In the process, entirely new industries, and it worked. Canada built...
Okay, sorry, World War II ended 45. Okay, so they were in power for 2 terms following World War II. So the party he's referring to right now.
Its way out of that crisis into post-war economic strength. Decades of rapid growth, decades of prosperity.
Hey, welcome back, Sammy and Mr. G, by the way, and Denny. Forgot to say that when you guys came in. And her chain, welcome back as well. I don't know if I said that to you.
Today's reality is that even when Canadians, particularly young Canadians, are doing everything right, when they're getting a good education, they're studying hard, they've secured a well-paying job, they're saving up, they often have barely enough to pay the rent, let alone to afford a home of their own. On average, across this country, it takes over 4 years to save for a down payment. For first-time buyers, it's 6 years. In markets like Toronto, even longer. There simply aren't enough homes, so housing is just too expensive. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. We have solved a housing crisis before in our past. We can solve the housing crisis now. It's time to build. And my government has a plan to do just that. We have the experience, much of it standing behind me, and we have the resolve to get this done. Today, I'm announcing that my new Liberal government is flipping the script on housing with a new approach to build faster.
Yeah, so apparently after World War II, the economy actually started to boom afterwards. So after the Liberals were kind of on their way out of office already, and it was not through affordable housing was the housing crisis solved, but just a boom in residential construction in general. So people were working hard, and there was a good, I guess the economy was in a position where you could put in a lot and there was a lot of work, so you could get a lot out of it. Like, I don't know the exact reasons, I have to do some more research, but what I'm just seeing is that it was like 1953 afterward did we start to see this boom that he's referring to after the Liberals were out of office. If he wants to say that's for their policies, which it is possible, but I want to look into this more and find out exactly if what he's saying is true.
Build smarter and to build more affordably. Unlike Pierre Poilievre, who thinks slash and burn is the answer to every problem, we're going to address failures in the housing market head on. And we're going to unleash the power.
So how is that slash? Okay. Like, is Mark Carney even paying attention to Poilievre's platform? How is he just slashing and burning? That's not what he's doing. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if anything, a lot of conservatives are thinking he's giving a little too much at this point.
Or public-private cooperation.
Or pledging to give too much.
At a scale not seen in generations. Our goal is to double the pace of housing construction to almost 500,000 new homes every single year. Homes you can afford to buy. Homes that are more sustainable and cost less to live in. Homes made right here with Canadian ingenuity, Canadian labor, Canadian products, including mass timber. The first part of our plan is to create an entirely new entity, Build Canada Homes, a lean, mission-driven organization that will do several things.
So yeah, what I'm getting is that it was a combination of the administration he's referring to, as well as the following decade of the progressive conservative government of John Diefenbaker in the late 50s to the early 60s. So they're saying it's a combination of these two policies. So it was actually home building programs and tax cuts that apparently led to this big boom. And it also, there was a huge boom in general home ownership and mortgage lending. So, and essentially, what the Liberal administration was responsible for was they were able to create the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation in 1946 to provide low-cost loans and mortgage insurance. So they helped people get mortgages, and they did expand social housing ownership, but that seems to be one of the smaller variables of it all. It was just the general large-scale suburban development that was being encouraged with government-backed financing and tax breaks. So it sounds like the approach that Poilievre wants to have is more in line with what they did post-World War II compared to what Carney's saying. Carney, I feel like, is just is kind of like a Trojan horse of what Poilievre is trying to be.
First, it will act as a developer on new affordable housing projects. It will catalyze a new housing industry. It will provide financing for affordable home builders. Notre plan commence par la création d'une nouvelle.
If I understand, the Housing Accelerator Fund did build houses, but it was only in liberal areas. Like, only liberal ridings got the funding. There was the guy from North York, Simcoe, that MP, I think his name's Scott something, I forget his name. He's the one who brought a big spotlight on it and was pushing it forward and saying, look, like, we're right outside the city. We're technically part of the city, but this area is rural. It's an island off the coast. It needs development. And they were applying for the Housing Accelerator Fund and they were denied. And then they were seeing areas that were in way less need, that did not have the same kind of growth, that were getting it. And the only difference is that was a liberal riding and he is a conservative riding. So I think that, like, they were basically using it to play politics, right?
Entité, Bâtir Maison Canada, une organisation allégée axée sur sa mission qui va, premièrement, to build affordable homes at scale.
My whole point is, even what he's saying about, Mackenzie King being responsible, like that era of being responsible for the recovery after World War II, it's arguable. It sounds like it was more of the following progressive conservative government that also was able to really bring forth that boom. The boom that, like, my relatives refer to when they refer to things being a lot easier. You know what I mean? Like, especially if they owned a business. You might not have been as well off if you're a minimum wage worker. You would have been making like $3 to $5 an hour at the time. So you probably wouldn't be getting as much. But if you were skilled labor, if you were someone who was doing a more prominent career, or you owned a business, you were making a lot more, and your dollar was going a lot further.
Including on public lands. We'll make good on the promise to unlock federal lands for home building on a post-war scale. Build Canada Homes will also provide $10 billion of low-cost financing to builders to construct deeply affordable homes for those most in need, as well as housing for students and seniors. And Build Canada Homes will catalyze the creation of an entirely modern housing industry in this country. We need to take our construction sector to the next level. There are 80,000 vacancies and another 300,000 workers set to retire over the course of the next decade. Labor productivity in this sector has been stagnant for years. And at the same time, construction costs are up 51% in recent years. The way we build homes needs to change. Prefabricated and modular housing will play a big role in the future. They can drive down the time to completion by up to 50%. They're cheaper to build by up to 20%. And they're a more sustainable way to build, producing 22% fewer emissions than traditional construction methods.
Sorry, guys. I had to mute myself for a second because my wife was talking to me, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoops. Yeah, I'm not even going to repeat what I said. Sorry, guys.
And the good news is we're already home to many.
You know, this is what happens. I got background noise. Spring break. I got people here. My wife's off today, so she's here too. I got fridge opening, dog running around, so I have to mute the mic, and then I forget to unmute it. First time it's happened all stream, guys. Don't give me a hard time.
New prefabricated housing factories. We want Canada to be the world leader in this new innovative industry.
I got more excuses if you want them, by the way, guys.
We should be that leader. That's why we're providing $25 billion in financing to scale up that industry. And in the process, we will create good jobs up and down the supply chain. Good jobs in innovative housing research, such as the UBC Smart Structures facility that I visited this past February. Good jobs in prefabricated and modular housing, like those in Sherbrooke, Quebec, in my own riding of Nepean, or in Calgary at ATCO. Good.
Yeah, it's funny because I honestly, like, sometimes I'm just like channeling the commentator in me, and I'm thinking out loud, and I can't repeat what I said sometimes if I go muted, so I do apologize. I honestly don't remember every single word of what I said. I was just really in the moment.
Good jobs in our world-class forestry industry by using Canadian lumber and mass timber, such as that which is being pioneered in Elmsdale, Nova Scotia, where I visited last week. And of course, at the heart, at the core, good jobs, great jobs in the skilled trades for hard-working people like the folks behind me who will be busy building these homes for decades.
Yeah, it just sounds like they want to go back to the affordable housing kind of approach to things, which I don't know. I just don't think that works. Like, it sounds like anytime affordable housing's been successful, it's been in combination of also government-backed financing just into building, right? Or, you know, tax breaks on people building, or trying to incentivize just building in general seems to be the main catalyst, which is what Poilievre seems to be way more in favor of. I know that, you know, Mark Carney has said the thing about the GST home thing, but it's only for first-time home buyers. Like, arguably, what Poilievre has promised is a lot more, right? If he's actually to do everything he's promised at this point, like, it's arguably might be pissing off some old school conservatives, because it is a lot of money. So, and in this case too, Mark Carney's promising our money too. I can't say either side is going to spend less at this point. All I can say, like, for sure, the conservatives seem like they're, if they follow the dollar for dollar principle, any new deficits are going to have to be thought of with a replacing with something, but it gives them a lot of wiggle room. Like, the last deficit was 61 billion. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they probably have a lot of wiggle room there. And with Carney though, I just don't think it's like, I just don't agree with the approach to things. Like, and we look at history, we look what happened in World War II. I think, you know, I want to do more research on that era, the post World War II, 1946 to 1953 and beyond era, to see what happened there. How do we recover? Because I'm curious if the Liberals actually played a strong part in that. Of course, it was a completely different party back then, but I'm just curious to see, because from what he's saying, if it adds to this air of arrogant virtue he has, that just, you know, like, I want to know, is this actually backed by something, or are you just like Trudeau?
Build Canada Homes will build deeply affordable and middle-class housing, single-family homes, high-rise apartments, and everything in between. And on top of creating that entity, that new structure, Build Canada Homes, the second part of our plan is to drive growth by making the housing market itself work better. Taxes and regulations have been choking the industry and making it difficult, in some cases impossible, to build. Canadians are paying the price. That's why, for the next 5 years, my government will cut development charges, taxes on home building in half for all multi-unit housing. That's $40,000 off the cost of a two-bedroom apartment just south of here in Toronto.
You play that again?
And taxes on home are paying the price. That's why, for the next 5 years, my government will cut development charges.
Oh, so you're slashing now.
Taxes on home building in half for all multi-unit housing.
It's actually not a bad idea, but again, this is an Ottawa focus. This is an Ottawa mindset. Like, this is a city problem for sure. I think if you want to apply that in the cities, go right ahead. I think if you move to the city, you're kind of giving up living in a suburb anyways. You're kind of giving up having certain levels of privacy, in my opinion. Like, if you're in a big city like Vancouver, Toronto, any of those areas, I fully think this is a great idea and is going to help fix housing in those areas and maybe make housing more affordable in those big cities. That's great. But outside of the big cities, what does this do?
That's $40,000 off the cost of a two-bedroom apartment just south of here in Toronto. We'll fund new housing infrastructure to cover the lost revenue, while expecting provinces and territories to do the same.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre never elaborated on how he was going to do it, but he said he was going to incentivize this. He said he was going to incentivize municipalities to build as many residences as possible, which would he never said how he was going to do it though. And I think he said along the lines of tax breaks similar to what he's offering, but again, didn't make a formal policy announcement about it. So let's not jump to conclusions here. But this whole thing, like, I don't know, like, I'm not going to get angry about it because this is a good move. It's just, again, I think the liberal idea of just focusing on the cities and geopolitics, I think that's kind of what they do. Is like, traditionally, they don't really care about your rural Canadians, or just don't really seem to understand their way of thinking or what their priorities are. And again, I guess it doesn't really matter in Canada though, right?
Well,
if you want to get elected.
Inciter les promoteurs immobiliers. On va aussi garder la déduction pour amortissement accéléré par les bateaux. The Daniel Gouvernement.
Well, it's not officially a conservative policy because Poilievre never made an official announcement about it, and he never actually elaborated on how he was going to do it. He just said he was going to incentivize it.
Countless mayors double down on what's already working. The new Housing Accelerator Fund is an example. It's gaining traction. And countless mayors.
Yeah, but that's just a simplistic way of putting it, though, right? Like, he said the municipalities would receive more money if they make more houses, and municipalities that block housing wouldn't get funds. Yeah, but that's not like a formal policy, right? Like, that's not a formal strategy. He's not throwing numbers out there. He's not saying exempted to this or that. Like, he's not giving a formal policy announcement about it like Carney is now, but I imagine he will soon. I know as part of the platform he's talked about incentivizing home building for municipalities, which also will help in rural communities like mine, where the municipality doesn't want to expand. They don't want to give permits out. It's something like 2 years to get a permit in a town that has less than 10,000 people. I don't understand why. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if anything, you want people building here. You'd be like, yeah, do it, build this, build that. They don't, because there's a lot of people who don't want their small towns to become a city, right? And that's what they're afraid of. So they end up like this, and there's just a lot of it. And a lot of them are in government. A lot of them are in municipal politics and city council, whatnot. And they are the ones who don't really want the town to progress. They don't want it to grow. They want it to stay the same. And I don't really agree with that. So I think incentivizing municipalities in general to build homes is going to be a great way to give some kind of, an incentive for these communities to push harder, or maybe to be more open to allowing homes to build, allowing their communities to expand, and allowing that growth to happen, because we need it. And I think we need to spread out more. I think part of the problem of everyone being grouped up in the cities and along the border, is we have issues like this housing crisis, right? And there's tons of people who just refuse to move away from those areas, and maybe they can, it's their home. They, maybe they shouldn't have to, but it's like, they're literally working 2 or 3 jobs, like 2 people sometimes, 2 or 3 jobs just to sustain a mortgage there or pay rent there. So it's like, to me, it's at the end of the day, though, I'm not going to get too carried away with this. It still is a good plan.
We've signed on from Guelph to Red Deer, Quebec City, have said it's building more homes in their communities.
I just don't think it's aggressive enough, I guess is what I'm saying.
Pierre Poilievre is ignoring them when he commits to eliminating the Housing Accelerator. Because I listen and learn, my government will not just keep it, we'll reinforce it including by publicly reporting on municipalities' progress to speed up permitting and approval timelines.
I think he's doubling down on it because, again, politically inexperienced. Mark Carney is a political noob, guys. He doesn't really know what he's, I think in his mind, he's just like, well, this is a good solution, or I'm right on this. And it's like, again, this is politics. That doesn't matter. It's about how you present it to the people. And all they hear is, oh, you're going to use this broken, failed program again with not much changes to it. Besides, you're going to build you're going to put the tax break separately on people who build multiple occupation homes. So stuff like, townhouses, quadruplexes, duplexes, I imagine. And he was saying, I think 4 was the minimum. So I guess quadruplexes are bigger. So it's just, I don't know, like, that's not a bad idea. But again, that's more of just a city only solution. That's not going to help the rural communities as much, I don't think. Because I don't think that's the problem. We have tons of space up here. It's just a matter of we need people to build, and there's cheap land. You buy a plot of land, 10 grand. You know what I mean? Like $20,000, you can buy a plot of land. Can't say you can build on it for sure, but you can go check it out and get it surveyed, all that stuff. But
by getting government back into the business of building affordable homes, and by making the market work better, we will drive a huge increase in housing supply so we can bring costs down for Canadians. We will build at a pace not seen since the Second World War.
yeah, the thing though, the actual boom happened following their administration's exit and the progressive conservative government coming in. And it seems like the most prominent years of that boom were 54 to 59, from what I can see. And that was all conservative government. Whether or not that was liberal policies the progressive conservative took and ran with is another question. I'm just saying. But it sounds like it was the large-scale private investment and government-backed financing in home building that led to that boom.
Cet investissement, le plus grand depuis des générations, s'appuie sur les mesures que j'ai prises pour mettre moins d'argent à la propriété paramédicale. Hands-on deck strategy recognizes paramédical à Kenora ou enseignant à Kingston. Our government's housing plan recognizes that it won't be business as usual. That never works in a crisis. It's all hands-on deck strategy. It's an industrial strategy to get millions of more homes built. It recognizes that young Canadians...
Yeah, and I've heard it's not as simple as this issue too for certain cities, like certain areas in the in the GTA, for example, have major infrastructure issues right now, and they're in need of major infrastructure upgrades when it comes to sewage and water, things like that. So in order to accommodate all these extra domiciles as well, that will need to be met, but that is, I believe, a provincial responsibility. I don't think that falls under federal responsibility or jurisdiction. However, this is just an incentive, right? And I just think it's not that simple for certain areas, and I don't think Poilievre can fix this quickly either, because there's like I said, major infrastructure issues that they're going to have to address prior to being able to add additional homes and residences in some areas.
Canadians can't wait any longer. It recognizes that they deserve the same opportunities that previous generations like mine had. It recognizes that sometimes government, your government, needs to step in and step up. Now, unfortunately, there is someone who just doesn't get it. Someone who thinks the answer to everything is a slogan or a tax cut.
You literally have a sign, and you just said you're giving a tax cut. What are you talking about? You just gave a tax cut. You're literally talking about a tax break with a slogan on a sign in front of you. Like, does anyone else see this? Like, the utter hypocrisy. Like, what? Like what? Like, are you dumb, or just think we're that dumb?
Someone who worships at the altar of the market, but who never has actually worked in it. That's Pierre Poilievre. C'est le type de politicien de carrière qui...
Like, again, I'm not even against the tax cut, but don't stand there and criticize Poilievre for doing the same thing you're doing. Like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even against this tax cut. It's a good idea. But at the same time, like, you're just being a hypocrite. and he's just so arrogant in the way he says it. It does bother me. And I can't stand this guy. I can't stand, I forget his name. It's like Sablanka or something. I can't remember his name. The guy standing back here, oh my goodness, his face in this as well. His lack of political inexperience is starting to show big time. This is what I mean, right? It's like people don't even know this guy yet. And it's like you're literally doing what you're just criticizing. This is like when Pierre criticized him for having slogans. Same kind of moment. It's like, what? Like, you of all people are saying this?
Le marché libre, bien qu'il n'a jamais eu à signer une chèque de paie. En fait, Pierre Poilievre veut supprimer la politique de logement qui fonctionne, et laisser le marché faire le reste. Ce n'est pas de leadership.
Sir Barra, that's his name.
C'est de
Sorry, I just know him from committee meetings. I'm not a big fan of him.
Oh, pas du tout. Unlike Mr. Poilievre de marché. Now, unlike Mr. Poilievre, I've actually worked in the private sector.
Ooh.
I know how the world works, and I know how it can be.
I don't think you do. I don't think you understand how people work. And that's part of the world, buddy. So I don't think you understand this. I don't think you get how the world works. I think you do.
Made to work better for everyone. I know, liberals know, that markets are the most powerful tools we've ever invented. They can help find solutions to our greatest problems. But we also know that markets can fall short, especially at times of great change. In Canada, we have a huge need for new housing. This is an insurmountable challenge if, like Pierre Poilievre, your only plan involves fiddling with the tax code and slashing programs that work.
But the Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't work. Like, you said that. Like, you said it doesn't work and you were going to make it better. So you're like, what?
You actually want to build the future. This challenge is an amazing opportunity. It's an opportunity to create entirely new, highly competitive, job-rich Canadian industry that will work for everybody. One that uses Canadian technology, while creating the need for more carpenters, more joiners, and a lot more Canadian lumber. We get that. Liberals get that. Pierre Poilievre never will. On ne connaît pas les prochaines étapes des États-Unis, mais notre destin.
I honestly, this speech is reminding me a lot of Trudeau, because I'm like, who's telling you that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's, again, surrounded by the same yes men Trudeau probably was.
Nous pouvons nous donner bien plus impossible at the United States. Qu'aucun gouvernement étranger comme les États-Unis ne pourra jamais nous enlever. We can give ourselves more than any foreign government, including the United States, can take away. But to do that, we need to do the things that were previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations. We can build things in this country again. We can ensure that if you work hard, you will be able to afford a good life. We can create secure jobs, a strong economy, affordable places to call home. We can build an independent future for our country, stronger than ever. We can build Canada strong. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, this is what we came here for, was the questions, guys. But we still want to, even though I don't like Mark Carney, I will force myself to watch this. I look at this as my political vegetables. I got to eat them. It's the only way you're going to be healthy. But at the same time, you might not enjoy it. More like lima beans, like cold cooked lima beans.
Paul Chang, one of your candidates in Markham, talked about turning over a conservative
Here we go.
candidate to the Chinese consulate to receive a bounty placed on him by the Chinese Communist Party. Can you explain why you've not dropped him as a Liberal candidate?
Thank you for the question. Look, the comments were deeply offensive. This is a terrible lapse of judgment by Mr. Chang. He has apologized for those comments. He has apologized directly now to The person that he mentioned, apologized directly to him yesterday. I've spoken to Mr. Chang as well over the course of the weekend to understand his position. He is a veteran policeman. Mr. Chang is a veteran policeman with more than a quarter century of service to his community. 28 years of defending rights in this community, and he will continue with his candidacy going forward, having made those apologies very clearly to the individual, to the community, and moving forward to serve.
That's all you have to say. What a noob, guys. What a noob. You know what I mean? If this was a conservative MP who did the same thing, like, oh my God, like, dude, they would not let it go. And I think that just out of, even if he doesn't agree with, like, I don't know, it's again, like, this isn't going to go very well. Like, I think people are more afraid of China's interference than any other country when it comes to Canada. When I talk to most, I think most Canadians are more concerned about China than Russia or the US. Like, they look at, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think most people agree that China is a bigger threat than America. China is a bigger threat than Russia. I think to us personally in Canada, like, so for them, of all nations, you know, for this whole, you know, it's just wild because, yeah, it's like there's a country that just executed people that had dual citizenship, regardless of the crime. It was still dual citizenship Canadians and Chinese citizens that were just, Chinese government didn't care what Canada had to say about it. They just did it, right? So like this is what I'm talking about, is like the idea that we're supposed to be okay with this is just mind-blowing to me. And there's still plenty of time he could end up removing him, so we'll see.
Alors, les commentaires en question terrible, renforcés, commentaires. Alors,
He was speaking with the RCMP about
mais il va continuer avec sa campagne.
I should say the Conservative candidate has come out and said that apology is not sufficient, and that previous to this, he was speaking with the RCMP about his safety. So I'm just wondering why you feel comfortable continuing with a candidate that was parroting Chinese Communist Party talking points to try and attack a political candidate.
Look, this is a person of integrity who served this community, his community, as a senior police officer for, as I said, more than a quarter century. He's made a terrible lapse in judgment. He's made an apology for that. It's also an individual who has family in Hong Kong. He's under no illusions about the situation there, the situation in broader China. He's made those apologies. He's made them directly to the individual concerned. He's made them directly to me. He has my confidence. Thank you.
See, this is what I mean right now, is like, it's good enough for me, so it should be good enough for you. That's a bad move.
En effet, c'était la même question. Alors, il a fait ses excuses. J'ai parlé directement à lui et à 28 ans.
It's not just opposition.
Et il va continuer avec sa candidature. Merci.
Good morning, Mr. Carney, Rafalucci Canyon, CBC News.
Yeah, what screams not in bed with China more than having a bounty on your head from China? You know what I mean? Like, it's like to me, if you're worried about Chinese foreign interference, it sounds like they're definitely not compromised. They're actually a direct adversary of this very authoritarian regime in China. So, like, to me, it's like, I don't know, like, this is, if anything, like, Chiang should just step down. Like, you know, if Mark Carney won't pull the trigger, you should, because, like, otherwise you're going to I think this is going to be really detrimental to this campaign.
It's not just opposition parties calling for Mr. Chang's resignation. It's also at least 13 civil society groups. What message are you sending to Canadians who are worried about pressure from China when you...
Yeah, from what I understand, there's a lot of, like, Chinese Canadian citizens that, like, basically fled China, right? Or their parents fled China during Mao's regime, right? And they're living here and they're just like, you guys realize how messed up it is there? Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're pissed off. And rightly so. Like, you know, and people need to remember that. Like, a lot of the Chinese citizens we have in Canada came here because they sought the same values that we seek, right? They didn't want to be under that authoritarian regime's thumb their whole lives. That's why they came here. Yeah, there might be some bad actors, but there's good and bad actors everywhere.
Allow him to stay on
every side.
And how can you
Some just have more than others.
criticize Pierre Poilievre for his lack of security clearance when Mr. Chang is considered a worthy candidate?
Well, the first thing, I can very credibly...
Just repeat that question.
Mr. Chang's resignation, it's also at least 13 civil society groups. What message are you sending to Canadians who are worried about pressure from China when you allow him to stay on? And how can you credibly criticize Pierre Poilievre for his lack of security clearance when Mr. Chang is considered a worthy candidate?
Well,
and might I say that security clearance they keep referring to is like one of 3 layers of security clearance that Poilievre actually has 2 of already. Like Poilievre has been more vetted than I think Paul Chiang has as a senior RCMP officer because he's opposition leader and because he's been in the House Commons for so long. Like he's literally been vetted more than most RCMP are. So it's like, it's to me, I'm not really concerned in that sense. Like he didn't want the highest level of security clearance. That is what he is refusing from what I understand. He's not refusing any security clearance. That's why I get kind of annoyed by this too, because they're just lying when they're spouting off about that. Because it's like, yeah, he's refusing that one specific layer of security clearance that would also obstruct him from just using certain things as political cudgels, right? And don't get me wrong, it's politically motivated 100%. It has nothing to do with his, I think he wants to be able to use certain topics to try and sway voters. And I think he has the right to do so. I think during the election, it would be a really dumb time for him to sign that security clearance. If he loses, maybe he could afterwards, but like, I don't think I don't know, if he wins, he's going to need to get it anyways. He's going to get the highest level possible. Yeah, it's the NSI cop that they keep talking about. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
First thing, I can very credibly criticize the leader of the opposition for being at 930 days running and not having a security clearance. I will say as well, in the course...
So 930 days running, but he's been in the House of Commons for like what? Over 6,000 days?
Course of my responsibilities, current responsibility, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. I did manage to cut the...
That's the Liberal motive right there. It wasn't me.
Piece of wood, second time running.
Like
although I was under expert supervision. No, getting back to these are serious matters. So I appreciate the question. But in the course of my responsibilities as Prime Minister, just yesterday, I received an additional briefing on foreign interference and potential matters related to that. Of course, I can't share any details of that, but it just underscored once again, I take my responsibility seriously, but the extent to which Leader of the Opposition...
No, I don't think Carney actually had to get it because it was like a 90-day window. I think he called an election before any... I think the security clearance that he's referring to, the NSI cop security clearance he got because it's just a matter of signing a paper. But in terms of all the asset and everything, his only defense was, well, I have 90 days. And I believe that window resets after the election as well, even if he's reelected. If he's reelected.
Does not and hasn't for more than 3 years. In terms of, but to go back to the specifics of your question, this situation. Look.
Well, according to the Hogue report, there was no traitors in Parliament, right? Like that's what we're told. Oh, there's no excessive traitorous activity. There's just a little bit, guys. Don't worry about it. Now, the NSI cop is a parliamentary thing, but as a leader of the opposition, it's not recommended for him to take it as leader of the opposition. He would have enhanced reliability and secret. I think he needed to get briefed on security measures for the clearance as well. Carney's involved with foreign interference. Yeah, I don't know for sure if Carney's involved with foreign interference, but yeah, Shaggy's his favorite artist for sure, Sarah. Didn't Melanie Jolie brief Carney before he was inserted as PM? Yeah, actually, I think he got it before he was PM. Once he was running for Liberal leadership, he got it, I believe. Which it's fine. Like he wasn't elected yet, but he was, running for Liberal leadership. I don't think he was the only one. I think Frank Baylis did it, or someone else did it too, I think. But I think it's up to CSIS or the current, I don't know who is up to give him that clearance, or if it's normal, but it made sense to me. Whatever, sure, you want to get it, go ahead. But it doesn't. The thing is that it's the Liberals that are compromised, in my opinion. So I think it's that their internal races were compromised. It seems like they're fixing those issues now, but when it comes down to absolutely not. You're talking to Saul there. But anyways, yeah, it's the whole thing's just a mess. I think they need to move on to bigger issues. I think Poilievre should move away from and he has already, the Brookfield rhetoric. I think he's kind of focusing on other things and trying to focus on more more actual scandals. I think that the security clearance and the Brookfield thing just are both like, I don't know. It's just they're just warming up, I guess. If this is all he's got this whole election is I can deal with Trump and he doesn't have security clearance, I don't think he's got what it takes to win. Like, I really don't. Like, I think people's concerns of Trump are going to start to fade, especially if Trump decides to back off, especially with this new, I don't understand what the stunt is with the phone call. I feel like Carney thinks that's going to help him get elected. But realistically, I think getting along with Trump isn't necessarily what all Canadians want right now. All Canadians kind of want someone to stand up to him, if anything.
I am deeply offended by those comments. As I said, they're a terrible lapse of judgment. I view this as a teachable moment. It underscores the respect with which we treat human rights in this country, the differences between Canadian society and other countries. This, after all, though, I will go back to the character of the individual who made a lapse judgment. This is someone who has served our community, has been on the front line of policing for almost 3 decades, and has been standing up for those rights and has that track record for it. He's made his apology. He made it to the public. He made it to the individual concerned. He made it directly to me, and he's going to continue with his candidacy. Thank you.
I notice multiple GTA area candidates behind you. If you're still standing behind Mr. Chang, why isn't he standing behind you today?
He has other responsibilities in his riding. We have multiple, but not every candidate. I know Yvonne Baker's off doing different things. People are doing things. They're out talking to Canadians. I'm honored that these candidates have found the time. I'm honored that Gregor Robertson, and let me just say a word about Gregor Robertson for a second. This is an individual who...
this was another bad move, people are saying, was tapping in Gregor Robertson, someone who's got kind of a record of low popularity. Like, a lot of people blame Gregor Robertson for not causing the housing crisis in Vancouver or making the homeless problem or causing the homeless problem, but they're saying he didn't do enough to really address it. And it was one of his big platforms. He literally said he was going to end homelessness in Vancouver. Like, are you kidding? By 2015, it didn't happen. It got way worse. So, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't think it's going to go. I think these polls, we're already starting to see the lead slip a little bit. Like, I think the Liberals were out in the 50s at one point. Now they're at like 40, with the Conservatives just behind like 36. I think the one I saw from Nanos polling this morning had the Liberals at like 43 point something, and then the Conservatives at 36. So like the gaps are already closing. So I think the stuff like this Paul Chiang scandal, and if anything else comes out, it's, this is like a huge favor to the Conservatives. Like, they're probably a little disturbed by what Paul Chiang said, but probably kind of a little excited about it at the same time, because it's a huge political tool in this, and it happened during the election. You know what I mean? Like, this is like just a free gift to the Conservatives, especially since he won't denounce him or get rid of him either, right? Like, he won't kick the MP out of the party. Like, look what happened to Han Dong domination, right? Like, they kicked him out. Like, this one gets a little different, but this is someone who's openly advocating for someone who has a bounty on their head to be turned over to the Chinese government. Like, that's crazy to me.
Obviously has served his city. He understands these issues around housing as well as anybody in the country. And he understands as well, along with the Minister of Housing, who's snuck back there, yes, Mr. Erskine Smith, how the solution has to be an integrated solution. It's not just about we are changing a number of regulations, we are changing things on the tax side, but we have to create new entities. And we have to build all the way through so that we can build a sustainable, competitive housing market in this country. Thank you. Oui.
Bonjour, Monsieur Carney, Laurence Martin de Radio-Canada. Pour vous, quel est le problème avec la...
Je comprends bien. C'est une position connue. Bill Law 96. In English, it's, to be clear, I understand the objective of Bill Law 96. It is, and I support the objectives. Support the objectives of the importance of la laïcité in Quebec, and the protection, the promotion, the reinforcement of the French language in Quebec. And that's one of the reasons why we are foursquare behind Radio-Canada, and you will hear more about that in due course. It's a related issue. It's not direct, but it's a related issue, which is why I raise it. The challenge we see, I see, my government sees, is the anticipatory use of the notwithstanding clause. So in other words, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is suspended in anticipation. That is, and that I have a problem with that in any circumstance, whether it's labor laws here in Ontario or whether it's in that circumstance. These should be judgments directly for the courts, and a sort of fundamental approach, which is in Canada, un droit est un droit est un droit, a right is a right is a right. And if governments are going to override those rights, perhaps for valid reasons and get a balanced right, it should be much clearer and not assumed away at the start. To just assume away the Charter at the start is the challenge. So it's a structural, if I may, final point.
Yeah, Bill C-96 is a Quebec language law. Apparently Singh spoken on it too today in the first week of the federal. Here, I'll find more about it and I'll let you guys know.
Point final, c'est un problème structurel avec l'approche, pas nécessairement la loi.
Justement, parce que vous dites que vous êtes d'accord avec l'objectif général de renforcer le français, mais est-ce que dans la loi comme telle, dans son contenu, est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec tout le contenu de la loi 96? C'est ce que vous nous dites?
Je ne suis pas ni avocat, ni juge, ni expert constitutionnel. C'est une question constitutionnelle. Pour moi, c'est une question constitutionnelle.
Yeah, it sounds like they don't agree with this. It's actually Bill 96. It was adopted in 2022, introduced sweeping reforms to Quebec's language law, touching everything from health and education to business signage and services for newcomers. It also limits the use of English in courts and some public services, and caps enrollment at English language. So I guess like English language scholarships or programs or something. So this sounds like it's a bill that he probably isn't in favor of, but it's a big thing in Quebec, and probably a lot of Quebecers are in favor of it. So it's probably to win Quebec's vote. He's probably trying to avoid the topic.
Mais le contenu de la loi, vous êtes d'accord?
Because it's something too, I think non-francophones, especially in Quebec, probably are not very happy about it.
Je suis d'accord avec l'objectif.
Judy Chin, CTV News. Mr. Carney, I'd like to press you a little bit more on Paul Chang. He lives in a riding that is 70% diverse, people of color. Half of that are people of Chinese ethnic origin, and of that population, about 20% are from mainland China. The question that people from Hong Kong have asked me to ask is whether or not you are putting appeal to those voters who may support the policies of China ahead of the democratic rights and safety of dissidents who have called Canada home, and mainly Hong Kong democracy activists who now live in Mr. Chang's riding.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is there's a lot of activists who have come here fleeing the Chinese government. And if he's talking about handing over a conservative Chinese, even joking about it is a pretty serious thing, especially to those people. I wonder how they feel. If they fled China, they don't want to go back there. They're afraid of that government. And you have a Canadian official who's possibly going to get elected saying this stuff. That's crazy.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Stand four square for...
Sorry, I want to hear that again.
Have asked me to ask is whether or not you are putting appeal to those voters who may support the policies of China ahead of the democratic rights and safety of dissidents who have called Canada home, and mainly Hong Kong democracy activists who now live in Mr. Chang's riding.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Stand four square for rights, four square for our position, our very strong position vis-a-vis China, respect for Canadian citizens, all rights of Canadian citizens, irrespective of whether they hold dual citizenship or not, to be absolutely clear. And Mr. Chang has long history of service to that community, history of protecting those rights. Mr. Chang is well aware of these issues, including having family in Hong Kong.
how can he be an effective representative?
Yeah, if anything, the fact he's a 25-year police veteran who's saying this stuff makes it sound worse. You know what I mean? It sounds worse. Like, it doesn't sound any better. Like, I get where Carney's coming from, but again, this is where his inexperience in politics is showing.
For them when they no longer trust him after he said this. The question, as you know, Mr. Carney, you know that Canada has executed 4 Canadians this year.
China.
You know that there are human rights activists in China in detention right now. How can Mr. Chang, how can your party keep him as a candidate knowing this context?
Mr. Chang has apologized for his comments. It's a lapse of judgment. He apologized for he's apologized for his comments. He's apologized directly to me. He's apologized directly to the individual. He has a long record of service. He's going to continue his candidacy. Okay.
Yeah. That's not going to go well, guys, for you liberals out there.
Maintenant, droit ici au Canada, le clause pour la Cour suprême. C'est pas plus compliqué que ça.
Vous avez dit souvent, on vous a entendu à plusieurs reprises dire que le français c'est important pour vous. Comment un gouvernement libéral élu assurerait d'abord la protection du français, mis à part la défense de Radio-Canada?
Mis à part tout ça, mais alors, nous venons de créer, par exemple, une nouveau ministre super, le ministre de protéger et du gouvernement fédéral.
Toujours, M. Carney,
oui.
Sur l'annonce du jour, vous proposez la création de Bâtir Maison Canada et on peut lire dans le communiqué que vous allez transférer tous les programmes du logement abordable de la SCHL à cette entité-là.
Oui.
Est-ce que c'est un désaveu de la SCHL? Elle ne faisait pas bien son
No,
travail?
Well, even Trudeau, like, you know, they removed Han Dong from the party, right? Like, Han Dong was removed from the Liberal Party and he ran as an independent following after. So, and it's like, you know, even that, like, it's, you know, like, make him a shadow liberal, right? Where you kick him out of the party, but he still votes in favor of all your policies if he gets elected in. Like, I think that's kind of what happened with Han Dong, right? And I think like there's not even an effort to do anything. And I think that's not going to go well with a lot of voters, especially like those. I think the demographics he's doing really well with right now might not be very pleased with that. And I think, yeah, traditionally you do have a lot more Chinese Canadians voting Liberal, but I think this kind of stuff is going to make them start to question that.
Merci pour votre question. Et c'est très important ici. Il faut avoir selon moi, si on a des grandes organisations comme le CHL, il faut être ciblé. Il faut être ciblé. En effet, le CHL fait de financement pour ramasser à CHL. Raison pour laquelle. Merci beaucoup.
And that's it, eh?
Oh,
here we go.
The core point on the structure of it was such a great ending. I'm not going to be able to recreate it. The core point on CMHC, to use the English acronym, is these big organizations. They work.
You know what's funny is he didn't get one question about his policy, eh? Not one reporter asked about his policy. He has to bring it up. He has to push. Nobody cared. It's all just about this Paul Chiang stuff.
Work better if they have a sole purpose, a clear purpose. And what CMHC, and the minister knows this, has been doing has been providing mortgage insurance financing, other forms of financing, but also having a few programs in affordable housing. It's not very good at the second, with all due respect. And it's not its primary focus. So we're taking those programs, existing ones, we're bringing them together on an entirely different scale, with entirely different tools in Build Canada Homes. And I was just finishing by underscoring the scale of ambition that we're looking to double the rate of home building, 500,000 homes a year.
It's like 20 minutes later, no one cares about home building anymore. We want to hear more about Paul Chiang.
Which is what this country needs. Building an entire industry behind it. Getting the great people behind me and those like them across the country. Careers, like decades and decades of work in carpentry and joining and beyond the other trades. All of this in a way that builds the strongest economy without any regard to what goes on in the United States. That's Canada Strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was
All right, so that was the press conference, guys. That was just like it's so bad. It's so funny. Like it's just it didn't go very well, I feel like.
Well, new nightly Nanos research polling for
This is the poll I was talking about earlier. I wanted to show you guys.
TV News and the Globe and Mail shows the Liberals widening their lead over the Conservatives.
I don't really care what Nanos has to say. So here we go. So you can see this right here. This is Nanos polling. Nanos tracking. Everyone says they usually favor the Liberals more. It's probably just their strategy. I don't think it's a direct motivation. It's probably just a data collection strategy, or where people tend to answer their phone calls, so it can affect it. Like I said, most pollsters, I think, have a hard time gauging the Conservative vote and the vote for the smaller parties compared to the Liberal Party for various reasons. However, like you can see the gap, like it's not that big of a gap. Like 7%, 7.5% of the polls. Really, this time with an election, things ramping up the way they are, really, that's not very much. Like that's, like I said, 4 weeks is a lifetime during an election. But I just wanted to show you guys this quickly, and then I got some more stuff with the Paul Chiang stuff.
Mr. Carney, I'd like to press you a little bit more on
We watched that.
For City of Toronto.
Let's pick this story up with CTV's Colton Prail in Ottawa. So, Colton, good morning to you. Let's talk more about candidate Paul Chiang. Carney couldn't have been more clear today that he is sticking by Paul Chiang, saying that they accept his apology. Tell us more about what you're learning, and could this potentially be a problem for the Liberals?
I think it definitely could. We've seen the ferocity with which the Conservatives have been pressuring the Liberals to drop this candidate, the number of media commentators outside of the partisan bubble who have been questioning why this candidate wasn't dropped, strategists doing the same thing. I mean, we are on, yes, the comments happened in January, but we're on day 4 now of these comments being in the news cycle here in politics and in Canada.
Yeah, these comments happened in January. I didn't even know that. Holy crap. So I just heard about them too very recently. I didn't even hear about them when they happened in January.
They are now making their way all the way to national headlines. This is an issue that the Prime Minister and the Liberal leader has been forced to respond to.
Yeah, I feel like they knew an election was coming, the Conservatives, so they didn't put a spotlight on it right away, and now they're doing it.
Because this isn't just a new candidate. This is a sitting Liberal MP. This is someone who is an incumbent, who has served in the Canadian Parliament through a time when foreign interference was incredibly noteworthy, through a time where especially Chinese foreign interference was incredibly noteworthy and a significant focus. There are undertones here where Joe Tay is now running in Don Valley North, the same riding where undertones.
So it says Paul Chiang recognized that he made a significant lapse in judgment. Oh my goodness. Like that doesn't excuse it. He apologized and has been clear that he will stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Hong Kong as they fight to safeguard their human rights and freedoms.
Here where Joe Tay is now running in Don Valley North, the same riding where Han Dong was in, or near the riding where Han Dong was in. This is a situation where the connections to foreign interference will continue. And so it poses a challenge for the Liberal Party, especially because Mr. Carney himself admitted that these comments were deeply offensive. I was speaking with pro-democracy advocates and Hong Kong democracy advocates over the weekend who told me they viewed this party decision as incredibly telling, that it was about partisan politics over values. They felt that, this needed...
No pun intended there, hey, Carney?
To be a red line in the sand that could not be crossed, that calling for a political opponent to be essentially exiled to China was beyond the pale. And that's really what this is. This was comments, whether made in jest or not, telling supporters that if they wanted to, they could bring a political opponent to the Chinese consulate and collect this bounty. Now, just one note on the bounty, because I know you said $1 million. It is about 183,000 Canadian. It's $1 million Hong Kong dollars. But still, I mean, the crux of this issue doesn't change there. And I don't think that's going to go away either for the candidate or for the Liberals as they continue to stick by him. This is going to be something that the opposition, not just the Conservatives, the NDP as well, used to attack him because foreign interference was such a critical issue over the past few years. It was such a critical issue for this past Liberal government and for a party that is trying to differentiate themselves from Justin Trudeau, differentiate themselves from the previous administration, being seen to be slow to act on issues that are either involve or closely tied to foreign interference could be a net negative.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm saying too, right? Is that this is going to be, I think, really detrimental to Mark Carney's campaign. I think more than he realizes. So I just think if you're a conservative, well, it's unsettling a sitting MP, and also who has 25 years as a police officer in Canada would say something like that. A little unsettling, in my opinion. Not to mention, I believe there are laws against what he was saying. But anyways, we're not going to get into the details of that. We'll probably be talking about that in next week's podcast more. Me and Saul, I think this is a pretty big issue, and it'll definitely make it to there, because this is something me and Saul definitely need to have an argument about, because I think I want to hear what he has to think about it, or if this damages his faith in Mark Carney. But anyways, that's it for me for now. I'll be back at 4 p.m. PST. We'll be there for Pierre's rally. Gonna try and get it right as it's starting this time. So I'll probably put up the stream starting soon and just leave it up until he actually takes the stage. I find I've been starting a little too early lately, so I'm probably just gonna put the time tentatively for 4 p.m. PST, but I'll keep pushing it back if Poilievre's not taken the stage yet. Just because I just want to just cover the rally, and I don't really have much else to cover later, so we'll just be doing that. But anyways, I'll see you guys later if you're coming out for that Conservative Corner with just me, just Justice. Going to be watching Pierre Poilievre's rally. We might pause, react as it goes on, comment how many people are there, what he says. He'll probably make some of the same jokes like he does at every rally, but I still enjoy it. So I'll see you all there. Have a great day and stay grounded.